Hello there, I'm Woolly Wormhead, and today I'm going to be demonstrating a technique, giving another tutorial on how to use slip stitches in short-row colourwork. Now, you may remember I've done a tutorial already on this, and I will link that. Now, if you've watched that tutorial, you may remember that I said that slip stitches within short-row colourwork play more than one role. They can do different things. So in the example that we looked at before in the previous video, this was kind of like one of the concepts that we looked at. I don't have the swatch around that we actually worked on for that particular video, but this was the concept. What they do, the slip stitches here, allow these little pockets of short row colour work to appear separate, to make them look like they're not connected. I wanted to, originally when I was working on it for the book, when I brought in the use of slip stitches, I wanted to create an impression of pieced short row colour work, to make them look like they're sections of short rows that have been joined by a background colour rather than them having been worked continuously. However, they are worked continuously because we've got all the floats on the back. Now, this is a repeatable motif, which means that the slip stitches and the short row colour work in a slightly different way to the stackable motifs in the book. And the stackable motifs also feature slip stitches, but in a different way. And that's what I'm going to focus on today. So this is another swatch from the book. And the slip stitches are down this end. There are slip stitches in both the orange and the grey. And what they do, and I know this is going to sound a bit daft, a bit absurd, is that they give the impression in the stackable motifs of appearing like fake short rows. All right, bear with me, because what happens is this grey is actually worked from this side. However, it looks like there are short rows in the grey that come up here from this side and around this side, whereas actually they're not. The short rows actually come this way, there's slip stitches here, and then they go up to this side. So it kind of makes the short rows appear in different place, or not make them imply that the short rows are different. Well, actually they're just broken up and they're segmented by the slip stitches. It's the stackable motifs and the repeatable motifs that both have them, but they're used in different roles. Now, what I've got today is I've got a swatch that's actually a beginning of one of my new designs. This is Penumbral from the Folineal collection. This uses slip stitches in these clusters around here. The green is encased by the pink lining, a pink outline, sorry, of the leaf. However, the short rows are all worked continuously. There's no breaking. What is done here is that you have slip stitches that help keep that, and there's no breaking of the yarn on the inside. It's all floats that you can see in there. No breaking of the yarn, no weaving in the ends. So I'm going to switch to the overhead. I've got a copy of the map to show you how the short rows, how the slip stitches are placed on the map and how you would manage them when you are knitting through the swatch. Okay then, so here I have a section of the panel map for this hat pattern. It's obviously not the entire pattern because it's in my copyrighted work and I can't afford to put it all on YouTube for free. However, this is the section where the slip stitches occur, and we can see them down here and here. And notice that they're offset. There's slip stitches there that go to this at the end of this particular row in yarn B, but they go one further with yarn A, and it's the same up here, and they actually line up here. One there and one there. Now, an important point to remember is that all of the other stitches, I am going to do a separate video on the panel maps to explain it further. It's discussed quite at length in the book. And the number of different concepts are in there, but I want to give an overview in a separate tutorial. But in brief, the sections around here that are all white are dormant stitches, same as they are all kind of over here. They're stitches that are not being worked. They are kind of asleep. They're waiting to be worked on later. Now, dormant stitches follow a short row. Here, there'll be, you end your short row here and you go back, and all the other stitches over here are left asleep. Now the slip stitches, in essence, are just like the dormant stitches. They're kind of just sat on your needle, not being used. However, because they do not follow a short row, I needed to mark them on the map to denote that they are different to the dormant stitches. When we were developing this for the book, we found that it actually was, it created more of a headache, and it was actually more complicated to just leave them as blank stitches, because people were like, well, where's the short row symbol? Because they were expecting a dormant stitch to follow a short row. So the short row, so the slip stitches are marked, even though they're actually just kind of really not going to be worked. They're just going to be slipped and not knit. So what I've got here is I have a swatch that is up to this point here. So I'm about to work this short row here, and I'm going to come back, knit 15, and then we're going to hit our first area of slipped stitches. So I'm going to knit nice and quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Now I'm going to stop at this point, turn, put the yarn at the back. You can, if you find it easiest to remember, slip all of these stitches, and then when you come to work this next row in yarn A here, slip them again. However, you don't have to. You can shortcut this if you find it easier. I understand having them all marked on there and you're kind of thinking, why am I slipping them and then slipping again? I can understand why it's confusing, but it's because I needed to denote them separately from the dormant stitches. All right. And this is something that's easy to overthink. Just they're kind of like, just it's another way of them being just held on the needle, or they're not being knit. So rather than slip all of these stitches over to this side of the needle and then slip them back again to work yarn A, we're actually only going to slip the next stitch here and then continue with the yarn A that's already been floated along behind to catch up. And we're going to knit 12 stitches here in yarn A. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then the next one's going to be where the short row, I'm going to put the short row on that stitch. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to work the rest of this cluster, and then we're going to come back to these points and see how we deal with the yarn as it's been left after the slip stitches. So to reiterate, if you find it easiest to slip them all the way across and then slip them back again, do. If you are able to shortcut it, then you don't need to slip them, or you just slip that one there, or however the pattern is written. You can shortcut it if you want to, but they are there to denote them and to make sure that it's clear that they are separate from the dormant stitches, which are the blank stitches. So let me finish this cluster and then we'll come back and have a look at it. Alrighty, I've worked this short row cluster here. I have just finished on this row that has 11 stitches, and I've worked the stitch at the end here so that we can work the German short row on that stitch. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to knit 13 across, then I'm going to slip a stitch and then go back over to yarn B to work the next short row and then come back. So what will actually happen is that this yarn will end in the same place as it started. That's the idea. If the slipped stitches don't line up in one particular colour, you will get that kind of 2-colour ridge that you end up with garter stitch when you change part ways. So let me just count my stitches here. Hang on a minute. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13. So that's actually, getting my trusty marker out again, we're back to that point where we started. So these line up. We are now going to put the yarn behind, slip this over, all right, because we need to go back to yarn B, the white square, 1 stitch over, because again, we need it to line up there. Now, obviously, we knit this before, so what we're going to do is we're just going to twist them to catch the yarn on the back. You see that was going on there. I've just caught it behind. And then we are going to knit 16 across, i.e. 2 beyond the last short row worked there. So it does get knit again. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 and 16. Do German short rows. We knit that, turn, make it into a double leg stitch, and this time we're going to go all the way back down to here. And work across that point. So that's where all the slip stitches kind of all started, and now we're going right back to the selvage. And what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to float this across, and we will pick that up later as an afterthought float. And I have a tutorial for the afterthought float. You take that around that way. There we go. You always change yarns on the wrong side of the work. So this is what we have here. So this stitch here that got knit down here and was left does get re-knit when you come back to it. You just twist the yarns in the back and you re-knit it again. It's why I kind of called it like a fake short row, because you've just come to this here in white and you turn and you go back again. So it is like a fake short row in practice. You don't need to be doing any carrying of any yarns in any place that you don't need to be doing that. The only thing that you need to do is just kind of leave the yarns where they need to be for the next roll that they are going to be doing, for the next bit of section that you're going to be knitting in that colour. And that's it, really. They're a bit strange, I know, but they actually make the knitting look rather clever, because look what's happened now is that you've got that blue there, but you've not broken any yarn at all. You've got that outline around in the kind of purplish colour, and there's been no breaking. That float will be caught afterwards as an afterthought float. Afterthought float. But that's what they do. So to recap, if you find it easiest, slip all the stitches across and then slip them back. If you are comfortable, you just shortcut, leave the yarn there, slip that stitch and go straight into it. All right. And then the same up. When you come to this end here, you just slip that, go over to there, and then you work across all of the slip stitches at the end there. Different patterns will have different layouts and have them in different places. This one has slip stitches in both colours, so I thought it'd be a good example to talk you through on it. But essentially, they are just left alone until they're needed. They're slightly different to the dormant stitches. They're just slipped. But yeah, that's how it works. I hope that's helped explain how the slip stitches are used in the stackable motifs and how they're different to those that are in the repeatable motifs, and the different roles they play. And also explain why, even if you don't necessarily need to slip them across and slip them back again, why they're still denoted on the map, because they need to be distinct from the dormant stitches. Yes, they're asleep in that sense. The dormant stitches are the stitches that don't get used after you've worked a short row. They're asleep. The slip stitches in this particular instance, not in the repeatables, but in the stackables in this particular instance, are also dormant. They're also asleep. However, they occur for different reasons. They're asleep for different reasons. And that's why there is a different symbol for them within the chart. All right, well, within the map. So I can understand why some people kind of go, well, do you really need to mark it and then mark it across again? I get that. However, we need to kind of keep that consistent. It's something we had to develop For the book, I'd already been working with this method of mapping out the short row colour work since I started the Elementals back in however many years ago. Um, and I had used slip stitches before in motifs like this. Oscillaire in my Lateralis collection, which has a kind of continuous all over pattern that swings around the hat. That has slip stitches to create fake short rows, and that was in 2018, which I was then aware that I was creating fake short rows, which again still amuses me to this day. So I had been using this for a while, but when we were writing the book, we had to kind of like nail down the map symbols, the way that the maps were written, and the terminology and the approach to it. And we needed to kind of basically say, right, okay, if the slip stitches and the repeatables are being represented fully, then they also need to be represented fully in the stackables, and they also need to be denoted so that they're separate from the dormant stitches, because yeah, they're asleep, but they're there for a different reason. So I hope that helps explain that. If you find it easier to just slip them across and slip them back so that you keep your rhythm, that's fine. If you are able to shortcut it so you don't need to slip the ones that are unnecessarily, then you can do that too. Whichever is the most comfortable for you, but that is why the maps have been written the way they are. All right, I hope that helps.